Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I will be joined by my co-host here in a couple minutes. Won't be very long, but the title of tonight's episode is Clash with the Titans, previewing this game before the bye week appears next week for Washington as much needed, of course. But the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And before we get into the preview of this week and going into this clash with the Titans, I do want to kind of talk about the latest news that has transpired so far this week. Austin Seibert getting sidelined for quite a bit, going on short-term IR. He is out. It looks like Andrew Wiley and Austin Eckler are both in concussion protocol right now. So most likely, depending on how that shapes out, I know Dan Quinn said earlier in the week that Austin Eckler, his tests at the hospital seemed good. Not knowing what really those are, but Dan Quinn in his presser today really highlighted how it's a strenuous process for this concussion protocol, which is a good thing because you want to be sure that this player is not going to be at risk of really serious conditions if they do go back out there sooner than they're supposed to. And then also with Andrew Wiley, that's another big tick off of there. That's a starting right tackle at the moment. Trent Scott came in and did an admirable job on Sunday against the Cowboys, but it looks like he might be getting the start this weekend against the Titans. But the big news is that for the first time since Washington has traded for Marshon Lattimore, he actually practiced today in a limited capacity, which is fantastic news. The fact that he's practicing is a good step in the right direction. Now, the big question is, based on this being a competitive Wednesday, per what Dan Quinn said in his presser today, meaning that they're really going to push guys in the competitive aspect. And so when you talk about these soft tissue injuries or just overall injuries altogether, when they do these competitive, hardworking, high-intensity type of practice, it's going to be how is that injury going to sustain the following days? Is it going to be sore? Is it going to be an issue throughout the week? And that's where the next kind of phase of this is for Marshon Lattimore, where you want to make sure that tomorrow he still feels the same. Friday, he still feels the same, of course, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Obviously, Thanksgiving being tomorrow. If you are doing a turkey bowl, I am very jealous. We'll say that. I miss playing in turkey bowl. I told my wife I wanted to look around because we're going back to see my family for Thanksgiving, and I was saying I'm gonna reach around and talk around and see if anybody's got a turkey bowl going on. And she looked at me like I was crazy. But hopefully everyone has a safe, fantastic Thanksgiving. Excited to get back home. But with Marshon, I think if he were to play in this Titans game, it would be a huge, huge addition to this defense. Meaning in the sense of when you're looking at the Titans, right, you know, obviously Levis had missed some games this year. I did watch a little bit of film on them from an offensive and defensive perspective. And the one thing that jumps out to you is their long ball. Will Levis is very good at being able to drop that thing in without having much push off, right? He just is able to sling back and sit there and rock and throw a rocket. And the one thing that I took away from the stats in this game is the Westbrook Akini, their wide receiver. I want to list his stats real quick, guys. 17 receptions, 304 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He has 6 touchdowns on 17 catches. So it just talks about the big play ability of this offense. So that's something that you have to take into consideration when facing Tennessee. Obviously, they haven't won that many games. I think they've won 3 games. They're 3-8 coming into this. But that being said, offensively, that is what is going to really something that you have to keep your eye on is nothing deep, nothing big. And that doesn't even discount what Calvin Ridley has done with 41 receptions, 634 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I think he has like 6 overall big plays for that offense. So they are very much a part of running the football and then having that play action work off of that and then be able to hit you deep, which is honestly what Washington's MO has kind of been this season, especially considering what Terry McLaurin has done. where they like to run the football, have that be effective, and then be able to, once your linebackers and your guys start looking in the backfield, be able to go over top and hit you. So communication and being able to play smart, good coverage is going to be ideal for the Washington defense this week going against the Tennessee Titans. And the other aspect of this is the rushing attack from our defense and being able to create pressure on Will Levis. Houston did a good job of trying to contain him when he did try to escape out of the pocket. He does have a tendency to be able to, when he sees that right tackle open up, to kind of dip out of that lane. So our rushers just have to stay cognizant of the fact of, if you are getting north, if you are going upfield, make sure you're keeping your right arm free to come back inside in case he does try to go through that lane. Something to take in consideration and look at. Now, let's list some of these stats before we go on and maybe answer some fan questions. But for offense, the Titans in red zone conversion percentage, they're 25th. Washington is 9th. In points per game, they're 28th, where Washington is 5th. In passing yards, they're 30th, and Washington is 14th. In rushing yards, they're 12th. Washington is 5th. In third down conversion percentage, they are 28th, where Washington is 8th. And in sacks, they are 30th, and Washington is in 14th. Which that sacks, them being 40th in the league, giving up on average over 3.5 sacks per game, kind of tells you where Washington's MO is going to be. The big goal, I think a key to this game for Washington in particular, is going to be to force those long third downs. What the defenses have done to us the past 3 weeks in creating those long third downs and putting us in those obvious passing situations has really reared its ugly head for this football team, especially offensively. So that's what Washington's defense is going to have to really be having their goal and their eyes set on, is being able to stop Tony Pollard. Right now, he averages 4.3 on the ground per rush, has 800 yards on the season and 4 touchdowns with no fumbles. So that's a guy that is very good at being able to get upfield, doesn't fumble the football weight, obviously does not score those great points, because you heard me say just moments ago that they're 28th in points per game. And so that's something that, like, they're not overly going into the red zone and being able to convert those and bring up a lot of points. But that being said, in between the 20s, it's obvious that Tony Pollard is very critical, and he is useful in that sense of being able to create those lanes and those yardage, and he's not. We know him from Dallas. He's a quick guy. As much as he is a couple years removed from Dallas, I don't think he's lost a step. He is very quick still. So Washington's real goal is forcing Tennessee into those obvious passing situations. Because what my concern isn't going into this game is them being able to pick up those 4 to 5 yards per rush, and then that third down being third and short, and Tennessee having the ability to go play action and then hit you over the top. That's kind of like what we saw versus the Cowboys, and that's one thing you have to be cognizant of on defense, is putting them in those pressurized situations, forcing them to have to abandon their game plan, so to speak, in order to move the chains. You don't want it to be easy on them in the slightest. Now, defensively, the Titans are 25th in red zone conversion percentage, where Washington is 28th. In points per game, they're 27th. Washington is 18th. In passing yards, Tennessee is 1st, and Washington is 4th. In rushing yards, they're 8th. Tennessee is 8th, Washington is 29th. In third down conversion percentage, Tennessee is 2nd and Washington is 23rd. In sacks, they are 25th and Washington is 19th. So obviously the identity of Tennessee, I would say if you were going to correlate it with a comparison to another team, I would say it's a lot like Pittsburgh, where they're very good against the pass, very good against the run. They do give up points, obviously, and they're not going to be getting sacks a heck of a whole lot. I guess that's the one difference with the Steelers and the Titans. But that being said, looking at this game, you can obviously see the kind of correlation that I'm making here, where the Steelers have George Pickens, Russell Wilson, obviously, and with Tennessee, they have a very good defense, and fundamentally, when I watched the film today, one thing that I noticed is their DBs are incredibly tough. They'll come up, they'll hit a linebacker to be able to create that log jam, the outside seal to force a running back inside. They are not afraid of coming up in the run game and making a tackle. Very forceful, very good tacklers, fundamentally very well suited for what they want to do there. And their linebackers are no slouches. Harold Landry is a guy 50 tackles and 6 sacks. He leads their team. Kenneth Murray has 76 tackles, 3 sacks, and 1 interception. So this is a very fast, fundamentally sound defense, and it's hard to get over on them. So the one thing that you're looking at this with is saying, okay, what can Washington do to take advantage and be able to score points? And that is where the trickiness comes in for Cliff Kingsbury. And that is where it comes into play for our wide receivers and our tight ends of keep catching the football and being able to keep the yardage short in terms of 3rd and 2s. Because we've seen the last couple of weeks, it's been third and 9s, 3rd and 7s. They've been put in some really bad situations on 1st and 2nd down. They've been getting either no gain or negative gain, and that's what you want to minimize in this sense. If there was going to be a game that you wanted to come out and not be penalty ridden like they were against Dallas, it is this one. You don't want to make it easy on that Tennessee offense, right? You want to have to be able to create those short down and distances, create that 1st down markers, and continuing to just move the ball. One of the things I think this offense has moved away from is being able to run the ball concretely and solidly. And so this is where Washington, it's going to be rough, obviously them being 8th. But that being said, I have trust in our offense. What we did in the first half, I would say first half of the season, was really confusing folks with our pool game. And one thing that I've been saying since the offseason, I would really like to see John Bates lined up at fullback, because obviously defenses have realized that in order to combat the pass rush from opposing defenses, we have been using chips with our tight ends, with our running backs, even wide receivers at time with like Terry McLaurin and others coming in to help with like TJ Watt and others. So what they've started doing is moving their edge rushers around and making them go over the middle. And one thing that I would like to see, if we are struggling to run the football, is using John Bates as a fullback. Allow him to get in there, his big ass, to go in and create rushing lanes. Be able to create that green yardage so Brian Robinson and company can get upfield. Which brings me to my next point. I am very happy to hear that Brian Robinson was a limited participant in practice today. I was concerned that he was not going to be able to practice this week and possibly be out this weekend. And then Washington would really be in a dire situation. But that being said, me being a former offensive lineman and defensive lineman, I understand that a running game is only as good as the blocking that is provided. And so in reality, it doesn't matter who you have at running back if you're able to create rushing lanes and protect the football. That's rule number 1, protect the football. And Brian Robinson this season, he has not had one fumble. And I think that he needs, and Austin Eckler has only had one, but I think that he needs more credit in that regard, where this is a guy who just battles it out. Obviously, he's had some injuries, but he doesn't turn over the ball. He's a force, and he is obviously going to help this football team. But that's one area where you want to out-physical this football team. You want to put on those bayonets. It's time for the bayonet charge. Because at this point, going into the bye, you have off next week. You've lost the last 3 games. There's nothing holding you back anymore. There's nothing to be really concerned about. When's the fall off going to happen? The fall off has already happened. So we know we have a week off. Why don't we just go out and just wreak havoc and try to out physical this opposing team, which is going to be difficult because defensively they are white knuckle. They will come out and they are ready for that fight, and this is going to be another one. And obviously Tennessee is also getting back Chidozie Awuzie, cornerback for them, so they're getting somewhat healthy. And so that's something to be cognizant of and think about, but that doesn't matter to us. Our MO has been all season is running the football, allowing Jaden's legs to help there, and then passing it off of that. And that's going to be your MO for this game, is getting that running game back. Even though they're 8th in rushing yards defensively, we're not bad, dude. We are 5th in rushing yards per game. And right now, as of right now, Jaden Daniels is a leading rusher on the season with 556 yards rushing with 5 touchdowns on 99 carries. He has 68% completion percentage, 2,600 yards, and 12 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. You don't want to go into the playoffs saying Jaden Daniels is the only thing that's making this offense run. What you want to, first and foremost, is create that running attack so the defense has to be able to consider it, to have that in the back of their head, and then allow Jaden Daniels to operate. Because the one thing about Jaden is, as much as he is a rushing attack and how that is such a thing for defenses to have to monitor and take care of, his passing is fantastic. And we saw that in the last 2 minutes against the Cowboys. And Micah Parsons actually reached out and I said, he was like, I think he's unstoppable. If they continue to play like they did in that 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, I don't think anybody could stop him. And he has a point because we've seen it before. We saw it early in the season. It's not like that is forgotten and that is in the past and there's no way to get back to it. I truly believe that things have just hampered them up until this point. The past couple weeks, the month or so, they were able to win out a couple games, but you have to get back to it one way or another. You have to find a way to win these games, and that is not to create bad penalties, to get rid of the negative plays, and be able to score points. Early in the season, they were scoring touchdowns at luxury. As of late, it's been field goal attempts, and that has to be changed if you want to win these football games, because we have seen that offenses, one way or another in that second half, they're finding a way to score points, and that can't be when our offense decides to do the same. We can't be not a punching bag, but we can't be reacting because, like, the Cowboys game is a good instance where the defense is really doing a good job of bending but don't break. We got lucky with a couple, not lucky, but we did a good job of nullifying a couple field goals. Aubrey missed one, the blocked kick, the punt, being able to create those short fields. But then we weren't able to capitalize on that. And it wasn't until Dallas came out and did something where then they start to fold a little bit. And it's like, okay, now we could score. Let's not wait on that. Let's just go inflict our will. You know, I know it's easier said than done. There's a lot that goes into that. But it almost seems like that identity of a team where it's like we don't want to take control of it in a sense. And I don't want to say that because football is a lot harder than that. But it definitely gives off that vibe where it's like, do we really want to control this game? And that's where I think Washington has to get back into the mix here. And because we saw that against Cincinnati, where they just took them by the horns and just was throwing them all over the field, doing whatever they wanted with them. And obviously Cincinnati came back and made it a game, but Washington was totally in control in that game. And it seemed like as of late, that control has wavered. So let's go back, grab it by the horns, and toss it to the side. Now, let's answer some fan questions that we have. This first one was submitted by the Colonel, which was a fantastic question by the Colonel. Is it time to, quote, break the glass in case of emergency and play Lattimore against Calvin Ridley Sunday? The season's on the line. It would be huge to get the dub before our bye week. I wouldn't say, I guess you could say it is a break glass type of situation, because the last thing that you want to do is go into your bye week off a loss after losing the last three, because then that doubt starts creeping in, and then that snowball effect essentially takes over. Whereas if you're able to get this win on Sunday, Colonel, to your point, it kind of changes that attitude a little bit where it's like, okay, now we're back on track. Like we lost those last couple, but we're starting to get that confidence back. And then that bye week, you could watch the next team, I think it's the Eagles, and being able to watch them a little bit and be like, okay, this is what we want to get back to. This is what we missed on the last time that we played them. But with Marshawn Lattimore, I think it's much more so. I don't think it's because of the break glass situation with Lattimore. I think this one in particular is much more so about what Tennessee essentially offers and what they do offensively at being able to hit you downfield. And Calvin Ridley is just one of the pieces to the puzzle of that. But that's one area where you're saying, obviously he's been injured. He hasn't been playing, obviously, for the past, I think, 5 weeks it would be. And so is that a concern of being able to run stride for stride? And do we honestly know what we're getting out of Lattimore on day one if he were to play Sunday? And that's the big question that I personally have. Is yes, maybe the communication is up with the secondary. He's got it locked down on the walkthroughs at practice, like Dan Quinn has been saying, that he's been getting that up and running with the communication with the fellow secondary, having that confidence to know, okay, that's the call, this is what we're doing. But I think it's much more so of the play aspect of it, where is he actually 100% going to be able to run stride for stride with these guys? But I think that's where the veteran savviness comes into it, and that confidence attributed as well, adding to the secondary, especially for Joe Witt, to say, I have confidence in this guy that he's not going to bite on that out route, that he's going to stay over top, especially against this unit. So, yes, I do think that this is a break glass situation in the sense for the overall football team. But for what the defense and everyone is doing, I think it's much more so of what Tennessee offers you and what they are going to bring to the table. And so that's where you have to use Lattimore to say, let's kind of quell that issue just a little bit in order to put our defense in a really good position to be able to win this game, because that's one area that you don't want to make it easy on them. Offensively, they're 28th in third down conversion percentage. You want to lean on that. You do not want it easy on them. You want to force them into those situations to say 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. Let's make sure we're putting in those passing situations. And I think that's where Tennessee has ultimately struggled a little bit. And that's why you want to take advantage of that situation. And having somebody like Marshawn Lattimore can certainly do that for you. Now, the next question from the Colonel. It's been a few games since we lost Jonathan Allen to a season-ending pec injury. Coincidentally, we've dropped 3 in a row. In your opinion, how have Johnny Newton and Phidarian Mathis filled his shoes? There's been sparks. There certainly has been sparks. Newton is, I'm not going to say he's undersized, but he's like a smaller kind of DT. And he's almost like a Tasmanian devil type of aspect where he is good against the run. His hands are like concrete, almost like the Rock Man, where he's able to hit down hands, get into the backfield. But ultimately, I don't think it's on Phil or Johnny Newton as of late. Because right now, defensively, we're 29th in rushing yards. We haven't been stellar against the run. We've seen that time and time again against these teams where we allow them to pick up the 7 to 6 yards on first or second down, making it easy on them on third down. I think it's much more so about the collective up front. Deron Payne himself has to be able to stop those running lanes. And that hasn't always been Deron Payne's MO. Deron Payne's MO and what he really clings to is that pass rush ability. I mean, he was our leading sack leader 2 seasons ago. So it's not like coming in that he is a stout run defender and you can easily just push it away to say he's going to be okay. I think he also needs to bring something more to the table in that regard and saying, you have to clog up those rush lanes. You can't get pushed over a little bit. Obviously, offensive linemen get paid too. But you being one of the more paid individuals on this football team, you do have to contribute in a high-intensity way in the running game. And I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration here. Defensively, we like to use a lot of those secondaries, those DBs. We're only typically using Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. And so offenses are looking at that saying, okay, well, let's rush at that. Because they have those smaller bodies out there, let's kind of force that and making their DBs come up and make a tackle. And offense has been doing a good job at being able to put hat on a hat and create those rushing lanes. But I think ultimately it comes down to those DTs creating more pressure. Phidarian Mathis contributed with that punt block last week. He has shined in some areas, being able to get off blocks. But if we're being honest, Colonel, just looking at the stats and what we have seen with our own two eyes, Phil, Johnny, Deron, Sheldon Day has been doing actually really well for what he was brought here to do. And that isn't a guy that we brought up here to start, so to speak, but his PFF grades have been very, very good. One of the highest rated defenders on the for the Commanders this past week. And so like that as a collective, you have to be able to clog those rushing lanes. You have to be able to do better in that aspect. In this game in particular, it's going to be important. And I think that we all know that, especially in this game, because with Levis being that kind of younger quarterback, you want to force them into those situations where they're going to be flustered. They're going to be in chaos. And obviously last week against the Cowboys, it was much more so of we were sending 4. Whereas I think if we put them more in those long third down and distances, let's get the boy flustered a little bit, because we now know if Marshawn Lattimore plays that he's not going to allow anything deep. He's going to stay on that hip. He's going to play it well. And then we have a little bit more confidence to send more people out there. I do think that's the battle right now, especially with Joe Witten saying that, do I have ultimately am I confident in my secondary guys to be able to play deep if I do send extra? And I think that's probably one of the issues that they're having right now. And so having Marshawn Lattimore is a saving grace for somebody like Joe Wade, who kind of really needs the confidence to feel about his defense and heading into these matchups against these teams. A good question, Colonel. I appreciate it. And I will say this. Jonathan Allen went out, I think, like early in the season. And so nobody was complaining about the loss of Jonathan Allen until recently, right? We have to be honest about that. John Allen left early in the season, and the one great thing that John did was take on double teams and was very good against the run. Let's be honest, that's what he was very good at. And ever since he has left, there has been a difference there. There's always been one thing or another, the reason why the defense is lacking. We can all point blame at a certain positional group, but ultimately that was going to be a concern with this. And we all knew that when John went out, that the double team was going to be focused on others, but we knew that the young buck and Johnny Newton and Phil were going to have to come in and bear a heavy burden. And as much as they have done great things, this is where, like, when the rubber meets the road, when the times get hard, people are going to start saying things and asking questions. And this is that one area where you got to show me something. You got to come through for us. And everybody has to come in, do their job, contain the rushing lanes, control the gaps, and force these running backs to not be able to pick up that 4 to 5 yards. Let's keep them to 3 and 2 yards and make it easy on our secondary members when they do decide to pass. Last thing you want to do is allow them to go over top. And that's one issue that we've seen as of late, especially on that before the second half against the Cowboys. Now, in the Discord, we had a question supplied by our boy, Mr. Deluxe. Could the offense's performance in the last minutes of the game be a spark to reignite it? It's a great question. And yes, me personally, how I feel about this offense is they need a big play, a confidence-building play to happen for them to feel ready to kick the tires to get going. Typically, it would be a running play, and then it would make things a little bit easier. I think that one pass that Jaden Daniels, where he escapes out of the pocket to his right, throws that dart to Terry McLaurin deep downfield, and then the offense was rolling after that. That is dangerous, so to speak, but over the past 3 games, the offense has kind of struggled to get that going because they've gone against very veteran, fundamentally sound defenses that they haven't been able to hit that play to get them into the rhythm. It's much more so of discombobulation, not knowing who to depend on in certain situations. But in that 2-minute drill, that was very similar to what I saw versus the Giants in week 2. Whereas when that 2-minute drill goes down, Jaden drives them down the field. They score that field goal to win the game against the Giants. I said right then and there, I think that's a change. We're going to see a change in this offense. And we obviously did from there on out. I think that was similar for Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels on that throw. Whereas he just drops that thing right in between, like into no man's land, essentially. But it wasn't no man's land because Terry McLaurin was there. And I'll say it again, he didn't get chased down. He didn't get tackled. For everyone that was complaining about number 1 elite wide receivers don't get chased down, you didn't get chased down there, pal. It's about time you put some respect on my boy's name. That's an elite wide receiver that we have in number 17 right here. God bless him. Love that kid to death. And he's not even a kid anymore. He's a grown-ass man. I'm just saying, give the boy his flowers. It's elite wide receiver. You guys can cry all you want about that not being a wide receiver, elite wide receiver all you want. He's a elite wide receiver to me, and that's all I care about, to be honest with you. Now, this could be a spark, Arch, going forward, because I think there is almost like, you know how there's governors on engines, right? If you ever driven a golf cart at a country club or anything like that, when you start going fast, you'll feel that decrease in the engine strength, right? You'll feel that it comes down a little bit, especially on a hill. That's a governor. And I feel like that governor has been on the offense over the past 3 weeks. Now, in that last 2 minutes, that governor was taken off. It was, okay, we'll do what we do. But the question is, can you do that for all 4 quarters? Can you get that going early on without that big play happening? And going against a team like Tennessee's defense that's number 1 against the pass, That's going to be very important for you to play free, to be able to really inflict your will upon the other team. I have heard people hypothetically say that this could be a game where we see Jaden Daniels throwing the ball a heck of a whole lot, which we very well could. But this is where the legs of Jaden Daniels comes into play. Because that last game where he rushed, 7 rushes for 75 yards and a touchdown, he's our leading receiver against the Cowboys. That's the sort of thing where that was like the first time that we've seen Jaden back to his normal self. And so I think ultimately, Arch, that was a going to be the gas to the fire, so to speak, of this offense getting back in it to say, we don't need to wait until the 2 minutes to play free. We don't need to wait that long to do what we need to do, and we know what we need to do. And ultimately, I think that it comes down to Washington playing free. And I think the interception against Philly was something that maybe had dialed things back a little bit. They'll probably never admit that, but just mentally and just trying to play safe. And obviously you want that. You want the quarterback to play safe. You want him to be cognizant of not turning the football over. But if you do that to an extreme, you're really limiting yourself. Whereas that confidence being built with that last 2-minute drill kind of erases the extreme of it, if that makes any sense at all. And so, yes, I do think that last 2 minutes is going to really jump this offense this weekend against the Titans. It's going to be difficult. They have very good defense. But the fact is, our offense, with 5 back there, you will always have a chance to win the game. And I will always say that. I said that in the week 2 after we beat the Giants. Not that many teams have that feeling. Not that many teams have the confidence to say, with this guy back there, we always have a chance to win the football game. And we've learned that throughout the season. And this is another example that we are going to see this weekend. That if you have 5 back there, he is going to help you win the football game. Every sense. And I think that I didn't give them enough credit because obviously I was distraught by the loss. It was a horrible way to lose. But they do have to get credit for literally never giving up. I mean, yes, you could say the Philly game, that wasn't really, I wouldn't say that's them giving up. I think that's just literally being tired. But it wasn't like they gave up, so to speak. Whereas the Cowboys game, it really was a dogfight. And it wasn't ultimately on the offense or defense that kind of ruined everything. You could say early on in that game it was. But that's where the harshness of all this comes into play, is that you can't just point blame on one or the other for the Cowboys loss. It was all 3 phases. And so going into this game, it's much more so of knowing that whatever happens, we know we have a chance to win this game. And that's why that 2-minute was so important, because it's really going to help you in the long run, especially against Tennessee. And that's why it's important to win the game, to build the confidence going into the bye week to say, we are back. That wasn't just a flash in the pan in 2 minutes against Prevent. No, we know what we can do, and we just need to get the ball to our guys, have them catch the football, and let's score some points and win these games and go home happy. And that's what ultimately I think is going to happen this weekend. Now, the next question that we have in the Discord, sorry, Arch, that was a long-winded way of answering that. His question is, the running game and B-Rob have been pivotal to the team's success. Have you seen anything from the film? How do they get back on track with or without B-Rob? It's hard to say, man, because if it's not one thing, it's another. The first scoring drive that they had against the Cowboys, they ran the ball very well. You saw B-Rob get into the mix. You saw Eckler get into the mix of being able to run the ball. And they went down and they scored that touchdown. They did a very good job of that. I think that was Jaden Daniels' rushing touchdown. And so then the next series comes out and they run the ball once. They get stopped, I think, at 2 yards, 1 yard. Then they have to throw the football. And then that's an incomplete. And now they're in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. And now you're in an obvious passing situation. Whereas early on in the season, the rushing attack was doing a very good job of picking up 4 to 5 yards at a time. And if they weren't, Jaden was creating something with his legs to either convert the first down or to create that short down and distance so they could run the ball. So I think there's a lot of reasons for the lack of running over the past couple weeks, but we have to give them they're still 5th in rushing yards. And obviously Jaden Daniels has a lot to do with that. So ultimately, that's why I think bringing John Bates in as a fullback to create those rushing lanes and to create that power football is going to be very important. Because what I have seen is they use a lot of those traps, those pulls. They allow the centers, the guards to get outside to be able to create some rushing lanes outside of some green grass. But recently, it has much more seemed like defenses have honed in on those rushing attacks. And so they've been able to clog up those rushing lanes and create those long down and distances. Whereas we just need to get to power game. And we just need to push guys out of the way. And adding somebody like John Bates as a fullback to be able to create that, to be able to add that extra to the wave to push things away would do wonders, in my opinion. And that's not even just in the rushing attack, because then you talk about the play action ability of that, where you have him leak out of the backfield. That's and Ben Sinnott, obviously, we've seen him run out of the fullback position before. We saw it last week against the Cowboys, where he flattened that DB on the block for the outside for Jane Daniels' run. So that's another thing where it's like you can really do some damage with that. So why don't we add John Bates into that equation to be able to set those edges, to be able to create that rushing lane? Let's add some more firepower, some more strength so we can start punching people in the mouth instead of having to do the sidearm, instead of having to do the pull where you have to try to get that rushing attack. Let's just go straight at their mouth and let's just knock them. Let's just knock their teeth out one by one and just jab, 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 and be able to get down the field, because we saw in that first touchdown drive, that's what worked for Washington, is getting down the field with that rushing attack. And this offense runs off of the rushing attack. That's what that's their bread and butter all season. As much as we've wanted to give credit to Jane Daniels and what he's done, what he has obviously done with his arm, it's monumental what he's done with his arm. But the ability to run the football has made things much better for Jaden throwing the football. And then when you have that lack of rush, now you have more of a need on that passing, and then you start seeing the regression altogether. And that's what we have ultimately seen now in the past 3 games. You solidify, you nullify that rush. Now they're pressurized on the passing attack, and the passing attack is going to take steps back. All right? And ultimately, it does come down to our wide receivers catching the football at the end of the day. But if it were me, I'd be trying to find something new in running the football. And that doesn't ultimately mean just in Jaden Daniels, because obviously you still have that in your back pocket. That's something a defense is always going to be concerned about. But it's just creating the power game. It seems much more so of the sweet feet, finding some nice kind of thing. Let's get in the mud, man. Let's get dirty. And let's have some fun, because the one thing about offensive linemen, man, they love to run the football, especially that power. Because when you're in the pass set, you are absorbing the rush. There's not much will inflicting as an offensive lineman in a pass set. In a running set, much different. You are the inflictor. You are the enforcer. And I think that there's multiple reasons why the enforcing has been limited up to this point, but I do think they still have it. It's just getting back to it and finding something new ways to be able to do it. Because I think one thing you can learn from the Eagles, I don't want to say this, but I have to because it's reality. Their rushing attack, their power game, is the reason for their late success. And we saw that ourselves on Thursday night. Whereas they run that power game, it drives you down, it tires you out, and then at the end of the game, that defense is worn out to the point where they're able to run all over you. That's what Washington needs to get back to. If you go back to that Arizona game, very similar to that. Very similar. Obviously, Jaden had some fantastic passes there, but the running attack was unstoppable in that game. And that's what we need to get back to, is not just the trickery, moving guys around to move linebackers off, because at this point, linebackers aren't biting on those. So you have to get back to the basics. Let's run the football in between the tackles, hit them in their mouth, be able to move guys out of the way, and then let's play. Then you could do the sweet stuff to kind of screw with them at that point. But at this point, the power game has been something that has been an issue, in my personal opinion, Deluxe. Now, the next question we have in the Discord, I'm not sure if my co-host is going to be here, by the way, but who returns kicks on Sunday? That's a great question, because Austin Eckler, we talked about this in the Discord, he is so important in the sense that he plays 2 positions. He's backup running back, but gets a lot of carries, and he also returns kicks, and he's damn good at returning those kicks. So who is going to be doing that this Sunday? And I think Luke McCaffrey is somebody you could always take into consideration. He has some experience in doing so. Jamison Crowder is still on IR, has not been called up yet. Somebody that always is there in your back pocket in case you do need it. But going this Sunday, I think somebody like McNichols could ultimately be in play, but obviously him being the backup now, you're kind of concerned about him getting nicked up or anything like that. So I think Luke is a big one. Oz might be another one because obviously him being a punt returner, he already has that ability, but it goes into catching the football first and foremost, Oz, and then OZ, and then going upfield. So I think that kick return is going to be a huge aspect in this game. I wouldn't look. I said this guy in the offseason, man. I would love to see B-Rob back out there, like kick return. that'd be some heavy hitting, bro. And I would love to be able to see that. But that kick returns could be a big question. But ultimately, I do think OZ gets the call for that one, just in terms of it being just 1 week, having to make that adjustment without calling up anybody. Because I know people have talked about Kaz Allen or Jameson. But if you're not able to call up one of those guys, that's where you go into who do you have currently, and somebody like Oz could certainly help you. Luke McCaffrey, another one, because he's not getting much run right now, and so you might as well, let's get the kid's feet wet. Let's see what he could do, and hopefully he makes something of it because you'd love to see that out of the young man. Next question we have is from Big Tony Shivers. What is your favorite Thanksgiving side? Oh, that's a great question, bro. Thanksgiving is so much fun. Back in my day, I would organize turkey bowls and tackle, of course. Have some fantastic memories from these turkey bowls. Sometimes we had multiple games going on. We had so many people out there. As of late, we're all older now. Nobody wants to get injured and not be able to work without getting paid for it. But I used to love playing football on Thanksgiving before eating. And so I'll say my favorite Thanksgiving side is my mom's stuffing. She does such a great job with the stuffing. I mean, it is so good. It's the moist. It's just absolutely delicious. We always go over there and cheat, and we eat some of it before it's ready. It's just, it's fantastic. The sweet potato is another one that I absolutely adore that she makes, where she has the melted marshmallows on top, the burnness. Oh, dude, it's so good. I could eat that all day. I don't even have to put turkey on my plate. I could just eat that all day long. So it's hard for me to pick between the stuffing and the sweet potatoes, but I love those, dude. They're so delicious. I would advise you guys to come experience it at the Ronick household so you can really experience how good it is. I'm telling you, it's delicious, man. I don't want to say the other side because I'll get made fun of, but green bean casserole isn't bad, especially when it's made by my mom. It's delicious. With those onion straws on top, oh, dude, it's so good. But look, I know how people feel about it, but I don't really care, dude. It's good, all right? I'm sorry you guys don't like eating healthy. And you can't go wrong with the steamed carrots either. That's a really good one. Now, the next question we have is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! From the 1 Point Safety Show, which, congratulations to them. They are on their 100th episode. So congratulations to those boys. Make sure you check that out. Their next show is the 28th, tomorrow actually. So make sure you guys check it out, all right? His question is, what's more important going into week 13, running back or wide receiver? I mean this in what's more important to get the game going. I know I've said the running game, right? I think the running game, and I don't want to say it like it's because running back. Obviously, Brian Robinson is pivotal in what he offers to the offense in terms of gaining extra yardage. Case in point, what he got injured on against the Cowboys. Think about this. That is a running back, typically a running back, going against a defensive tackle one-on-one. A defensive tackle typically has over 150 pounds on a running back. Is able to really do some work on him, right? Or 100 pounds. I don't mean to size it. But typically, it's not hard to bring down a running back for a defensive tackle. It's an easy feat. You pick him up with one hand and throw him down on the ground if you wanted to. But with Brian Robinson going against that defensive tackle on Sunday, you saw that defensive tackle was struggling to bring him down to the point where he had to fall to get Brian Robinson, bringing his weight down, holding on to Brian to get him down. It was such a struggle to do so, ultimately injuring Brian Robinson. That's why I made the joke that I was a beta tackle, because I know Brian Robinson's a big MF, but as just speaking of terms of a running back, A defensive tackle should be able to tackle a running back without having to do that, just speaking from experience. So what Brian offers you is just that freak bear intensity, that bear energy, whereas you have to bring in more than one hat to bring him down. It's really hard to bring that guy down. And so he gains you extra yardage. He's a big freak human being that you have to devote a lot of energy into in order to bring down. Austin Eckler has done a great job this season in running tough, running hard, escaping out of tackles, using his agility when he needs to get upfield, but he doesn't have that same pop. Rodriguez has a similar pop, but his pop is much more so of getting through, seeing that rushing lane and running right through it hard and fast to the point where he's going so fast and so hard, it's hard for teams to be able to bring him down. But ultimately, Brian Robinson doesn't have that top end speed to really go the distance, so to speak, but he offers you something that is so crucial in the sense of you have to have multiple hats to bring. You have to clog him up, almost similar to Derrick Henry, where you have to clog him up with big bodies. If you don't, it's going to be a hard day for your DBs. And their linebackers are no slouch in Tennessee, but neither is Brian Robinson. And he said today that he practiced and he went hard on that ankle, and it feels good, and it feels normal, and he was able to go full speed. So like I said with Lattimore earlier, he's going to have to really look at how he's feeling in the next couple of days. Is he sore at all from going hard in practice today? Hopefully he does it because he is such a pivotal point. But I will say running back is very important and overall to the game, because if you're able, it just makes everything easier for the offense if the running game is going. If the running game is picking up 4 to 5 yards, like we've seen in our defense past couple weeks, it makes everything easier for them on third down. And that's where Washington has to get back into doing. Early in the season, picking up third downs seemed easy at some points. There were some games it was hard to even get to third down because we were doing so well at being able to get upfield. We were doing it on first and second, where now it's the kind of change, right? And so that's why your running game is so important to make everything easier on the overall offense. But that being said, I can't stress enough how important it is for our wide receivers to catch the football. Because at times, I don't want to pick on anybody. I don't. But somebody has always had their hand in the pile, so to speak. We have to be able to help Jaden Daniels out. As much as he is the real cog and the real to make this offense run, because I don't think there's anybody else in this league that could do what Jaden Daniels has done for our football team. And look, I love Lamar Jackson. I love these other guys, Josh Allen and company. But, dude, Jaden Daniels is just a different freak. He's a different animal. And he is perfect for Washington. We just need to help him out a little bit more. I know it's been hard. I know the other teams have gotten away with things. But the wide receivers catching the ball when it is thrown to them is going to be crucial. We need to learn from Terry in that kind of respect that doesn't matter what's going on, you catch the ball and help this football team be able to move the chains. And obviously we got to get Luke McCaffrey more involved. We got to get Terry some more targets. Said this in the group chat, not group chat, but it was the spaces with the guys with Glenn and company. And I said, I know everyone's complaining about getting Terry more targets, but ultimately, I think Terry is more concerned about winning football games. And obviously, you can say that getting Terry more targets is conducive to winning football games. But in my personal opinion, with 53 receptions, 823 yards, and 7 touchdowns, without him being overly targeted like a CeeDee Lamb, like a Justin Jefferson, he is producing, my friend. And yes, you want to say, get him the ball more. You obviously want to do that. But what we were winning games is it was through the running game and making it a lot easier on everything else. So with Terry, I want to see them obviously throw the ball more to Terry early on. You should never wait until late in the third quarter for Terry to get his first reception, right? There has to be more of an emphasis on it. But that being said, you also don't want to strain that process and being more predictable for defenses to jump a ball. There's a lot of phases to it that makes it difficult to throw to Terry a heck of a whole lot. But at this point, what I'd be willing to say is Terry is on pace for a career year. And Terry, this for the first time at this late in the game, is playing with a winning record. And I think that he would be more interested in making the team win football games than saying, I need the ball more. But for us as fans, we'll speak up for Terry and we'll say, look, he does need to be targeted more because we've seen that this offense needs big plays to get the whole thing going because they kind of seem to need that spark to get going ultimately. So maybe feeding him just a little bit more to create that is something that needs to be done. And ultimately, I do think his routes need to be changed just a little bit. I don't want to second guess Cliff. Cliff is not the reason for why the things are happening because ultimately it comes down to being able to move guys out of the way and run the football well. But you saw that Terry McLaurin slant where he nearly takes it to the house. And that slant is not something he runs very often. So, let's do things like that. Let's make it easy on us. We don't have to do these long developing plays in order to get him the football, and we also don't have to just throw him wide receiver screens. We can organize and we can generate ways in order to get him the ball that is a high percentage shot, so to speak, if that makes sense. So ultimately, it's a long-winded way to answer your question, Scott, but ultimately I do think the running backs are way more important for this team to win on Sunday. Let's control that game. Let's get back to what our identity was early on in the season, and that is running the football very well, concretely, controlling the time of possession, and being able to get downfield and allowing Jaden to make plays in order to score points. That's ultimately what we need to get back to doing. That's just my personal opinion. Now, the last question we have from Tim Towner. In doing the math regarding the somewhat large veteran presence we have on this team and the reality that we are losing our grip on the playoffs, is this the time to throw some of our youngsters to the Wolves and give them a chance to make a play, especially on offense, like Sinnott, McCaffrey, Diami, C-Rod, and Wiley? I don't want to say that because you're losing your grip on the playoffs is when you push the young guys into the fire to the Wolves, like you said, Tim. I do think that normally you should be giving them more run anyway. You should be finding ways to put them in successful situations. We saw Cliff do that on the Ben Sinnott block. Going back to college, Sinnott was fantastic when he had momentum and was able to block on the move with momentum. And we saw that on that block. That's Cliff and company putting Ben Sinnott in a situation that fits his strengths. And we saw it play out in front of our eyes. It equaled 6 points, right? So you don't want to just throw them out there just to throw them out there. Let's throw them out there in a situation where they can be successful. And this is where it plays into the running game where Luke McCaffrey, going back to Rice, took a lot of end arounds, right? He did things like that. Let's incorporate them some more, right? If you're not going to be targeting Terry a heck of a whole lot, all right, well, let's find some ways to find our young playmakers and allow them to make some plays there. C-Rod is another one where you know what he provides for you, but I talked about this in the Discord in the sense of with turning over the football, Brian Robinson is obviously pivotal at being able to protect the ball and not turn it over. With C-Rod, I am more concerned about putting the ball on the ground if you do give him more opportunities. And that is what is probably ultimately my biggest concern with C-Rod. But also he's a fantastic blocker, pass blocker. And so that's somebody that you do feel comfortable with if you are in those pass sets to be able to put him back there. Put him in situations where they will be successful, not just throwing noodles at the wall, so to speak. Diami, we know what Diami did against Tennessee the last time that we faced them. We know how that game ended. We'll need to go into it. We're wearing the All Blacks this weekend. I would love to see some big plays by Diami in this game. I think he's earned that opportunity. And as much as he dropped that touchdown pass a couple weeks ago, I'm sure he's biting at the bit to be able to get another opportunity. And that pass that he had on third down where he went up high to grab that thing out of the air, secured it, brought it to the ground, that's where Diami's really showing you his next kind of phase, right? And so I think that it is important to get those guys into those situations, but let's use them at their strengths, Tim. And with Sinnott, like I saw a dude on Twitter say that Sinnott can do exactly what Bates does. Like, all right, let's time out here. Time out. Bates is literally a thinner offensive lineman. I know he fumbled. He's going to feel like crap about it. There's a lot of people in that locker room who felt like crap after that loss because of how they played. I get it. It's inexcusable, and I'm not saying that it is. My whole point being is that dude is one of the best pass blocking tight ends, best blocking tight ends in the National Football League. We are lucky to have him because he is one of those will inflictors. And you need guys like that when you're going against tough individuals. You need that hard-nosed dude that's not going to take any crap, especially from like somebody like Patrick Queen. And that's what John Bates is. And you don't want to take that away from him. But in the same breath, you want to use these guys to their strengths, operate in the middle of the field where Ben Sinnott has shown to be crucial. And so that's why I talked about that fullback aspect where Ben Sinnott can leak out of that backfield, run that seam right up the middle, try to get something to work in there, get him into the flat, get him into the open. And so you want to get them more, but it's not because you're starting to rush towards the playoffs. It's much more so of we just need production. And we have assets here, and they see them in practice much more so than we ever will. And so they know what they're getting their hands into, and it's hard to kind of add new things on a week with only like 3 practices to say, oh, we're going to run this entirely new plan without seeing it really develop over the course of the season. Hopefully they've been doing it inch by inch up until this point so they feel confident in those new things, but maybe we'll see more of them. I'm saying that I just don't want to do it just to do it because we're throwing the season away. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we're losing out of the playoffs. Oh, let's see if we got a spark here. I think that's kind of like the Ron Rivera aspect of things, of how he would go about business. I don't get that feeling with this organization currently and this coaching staff. I think they're very smart and diligent in the way that they deploy people, which is the smart way to do things. And so they will work themselves onto the field. We just need to put them at their strengths and be able to hit them where we need to. But we have those assets. We have them ready to go. Let's see them deployed, and if good things start happening, let's see it more and more. Thank you, boys, for those questions. Now, if you've made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. I can't thank you enough for listening to me for a straight hour. It's insane that you would do that. Me sitting here, I've already gotten bored myself. But let's break down this game. My prediction for this game. Unsung hero, I will say Ben Sinnott. There was one play in particular where Houston, they lined up strong side right with 2 tight ends. And it was Dallas. The Texans had Dallas Schultz. I forget who the other tight end was. But the second tight end was on the right. Schultz was on the left next to the right tackle. And this tight end runs a bubble, like runs outside, a bubble up, all the way to the end zone. Was able to find an open lane because I think it was a safety of the corner bit inside on a crossing route. Well, maybe in this game, you could capitalize on that kind of tendency from the DB's perspective. And so maybe Ben Sinnott is able to capitalize in that sort of sense and be able to get him another touchdown here that isn't just on the goal line. And so I think an unsung hero could easily be Ben Sinnott in this scenario and do pretty well for you. Quan Martin, I think, is somebody that has done such a fantastic job. He is somebody that continues to grow, progress, and do a good job. Needs to continue doing so. Jeremy Chin coming in and lighting up that wide receiver last week. Need to see more of that, man. Especially this being the 17th anniversary of Sean Taylor's death. This would be a fantastic game to bring back that enforcer mentality and that Cam Chancellor type stuff where you're coming in and just wreaking havoc over anybody across the middle. Jeremy Chin is another one that's going to have a good game. But I think Washington wins. And I think they win 27-13. I think Jaden Daniels is able to operate with his legs, but being able to look downfield and find somebody escaping and to be able to move the chains in this regard. I think that we are going to control the game, control the time of possession. Divisional games are very hard. I know that the Titans just beat the Texans, but they know the Texans better than other teams do. And so I know Texans are a very good team and Tennessee battled with them, but this is a different animal. And so I do think that Washington gets back, that confidence gets back on track. We're able to get a touchdown to Brian Robinson either through the pass or through the run, and we're able to control this game with Jaden Daniels' legs and his throwing, and we're able to pop off some big plays. Washington wins 27-13, and hopefully we can get some secondary sacks, which goes to the Titans. They're very good at running. They love to blitz with their DBs. One thing to be cognizant of, if you see a lot of guys up into that box, some standing up, that kind of trick formation, just know a DB is coming. Typically they are. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I can't thank you guys enough. If you made it this far, like I said, you're a frickin' champion. I can't thank you enough if you did so. Please comment on how I could make this more entertaining besides me just talking. But we love your feedback. I really appreciate you guys listening, contributing. I love you all. I'm thankful for anybody that contributes to this show. Everybody in the Discord. Tim Towner, Deluxe, Digital Guru, Yam Sensei. We got Andy Lockhart. You guys have done Tony Shivers, Tony Franchise. You guys have done such a great job of helping us kind of develop this show, and like you've become like part of us, like an identity of us, if that makes any sense. And because of what you do for us for every episode, and being able to contribute with questions and be able to create dialogue between us. I'm thankful for all you guys. I can't stress that enough. If there's anything that I'm proud of in regards to this show, as trivial and small as it seems, like I'm so thankful and proud. I take a lot of pride in the community that we have and the Discord and the kind of friendships that we've developed. Like I've never met Deluxe before, but he reached out when we wanted to go to week 2 against the Giants. We didn't have a parking pass, and he offered to drive us in. Like, and that's just from the Discord and stuff. And so like that, it's just, I'm really thankful for all you guys for what you've provided for us, and just terms of being there every day. You know, we got a strong group of guys there. We met Tony Shivers at training camp. We've met Tim Towner, who traveled up from Georgia for training camp not too long ago. It really is a fun group of guys, and I can't thank you guys enough for everything you've done for us. I'm thankful for, obviously, my family and others, but we'll all do that tomorrow. Because I don't know how my wife, I talked to her about this the other night. I don't know how you put up with me with this. It's kind of crazy. And she said, but it's funny because she said something about the pod making me happy. And I was like, well, baby, like, you have to understand, like, you and the kids make me more happy than anything the pod ever could. You know, you do have to take and remember that. So I'm thankful for you guys. I love you guys. Hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Hope it's a fantastic weekend. I hope Washington walks out of there with the dub, wearing the All Blacks, doing the haka. Ah! So let's walk out of there happy. Let's go into the bye week fully charged up, be able to get back to work in the following week. The bye week is coming at a time that is crucial. We could have used it earlier, but this is a good time to take advantage of it. And let's enjoy this Thanksgiving stress-free, and let's go into Sunday and win this football game. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo, or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.